Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. When this happens to your child, it's a big deal. And I'm talking about when our children are bullied. Very common, may have happened to you when you were younger. For some, it's almost like a rite of passage, but it can be detrimental, harmful, and challenging for the entire family. We're going to talk about that today. This is part 2 of our podcast on bullying with Dr. Allan Gold. And he is just an amazing school psychologist in California, has worked many years. Good advice helps with Dr. Gold. And he's back with us. How are you today, Allan?
Okay, thank you. Good to be back.
When we did this last time we got together, really good response. I guess it's extremely relatable for parents who are dealing with this. And we also identified that ever since social media became a thing, it's escalated in terms of what's going on. We have an email. Can we read this one?
Sure.
Excellent. This is from Mandy in Akron, Ohio. And she says, thank you very much for talking about this topic. I'm curious, when a child is bullied, how can that affect them later in life?
Well, that's a profoundly important question, and it can really affect a child, because remember, a child hasn't been around the the earth for very long. I mean, even if it's 10 years or 11 years or 12 or 15, they are judging themselves by how other people judge them. When you grow up, you're um, advised and criticized, whether it's positive critique or negative, by parents, by teachers. So children really develop a very critical sense of themselves. And as they get older, into pre-adolescence, early adolescence, they really depend very much on how their peers treat them. And if it's very negative, if they're made fun of, if they're bullied, if they're teased, if they're criticized for whatever it is, their appearance, their actions, their abilities, and so on, that sticks. And they don't have much to counteract it. As we get older, we can, have build life experience that said, wow, I'm pretty good at this. I don't believe this comment that these people are making. But I've certainly seen my own peers who are, quite adult, who were bullied or negatively criticized in childhood, and it lasts. And
Mm,
as I talked about last time, self-esteem is so important because there's so much negative comments about people these days that um, it really does last. And what's important for parents to monitor is if they hear kids saying negative things about themselves, if they're aware of the bullying, if they feel like the comments are being strongly internalized, then they really need to get therapy for the child. Because nobody, well, I won't say nobody, but most people are not all bad. And particularly young kids, they're learning about life. So yes, that's a long answer for a very important question. It can have a devastating impact if it's not dealt with. People who are criticized lose confidence.
mm,
Well, I can't try this new skill, this athletic or music or dancing, or I'm not good at making friends. And then when they get older, yeah, I don't think I'm going to apply for this job. I'm going to be rejected. Um,
mm.
so it really is a very powerful effect of bullying that really needs to be dealt with when kids are young so that they don't go through life feeling terrible about themselves.
That's a well, two many amazing points, but I think we forget that these are little minds.
Yeah.
Depending on the age, 7, it could be bullied at 5, could be 10, could be 11, 12, whatever it might be. They haven't experienced life. They don't know how to deal and experience life. And now you're presented with this horribly negative situation, which can, I guess, for some kids become the norm. And certainly later in life, fear of rejection, not taking a chance, you
It
know?
can, at worst, it can lead to suicide, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
or drug abuse, alcohol abuse. I can't stand dealing with these feelings all the time. I've got to get out of it. So, those are not solutions, but they're methods that kids will use. And sometimes it's so bad that they would commit suicide.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, can you recall a time talking with a student and what that was like I'm not talking about a situation like that, but just, walking through them through that journey, from the beginning to where they felt like they had a grip on what was going on there in terms of the bullying. Anything stand out for you?
Yeah, just how hard kids can be on themselves
Mm,
and how much effort it takes to counteract those negative feelings. How much they believe, well, she was my friend, and then she texted me and posted all
mm,
this stuff on, and I don't understand it. And, better that they don't understand, but than they believe it. But they're very self-critical. It's like, what did I do? Why am I this bad? Why can't she be my friend? What am I doing to drive her away and all that sort of stuff, or him? But with the social media, that's made it ever more complicated. And often girls will engage in the social media, and you don't see it as much at school. In the old days, somebody would pass a note, somebody would say something to you in person, they'd hit you. Bullying was much more obvious and
yeah.
it could be dealt with. Now, with social media, the anonymity of it, sometimes you don't even know who's saying anything to you. The exclusion, there's chat groups, and then all of a sudden you're not included. You don't understand why. Um, Pictures or videotapes may be posted that embarrass you. There can even be things like death threats. I'm
Mm,
going to kill you. People will post things that they, you know, never would say in person. So, I dealt with not the super dramatic, but certainly enough times when kids would see things on their websites and their social media, and they'd be really upset. And one good thing is that sometimes parents would take a screenshot of those things, and we would get this whole dialogue that's going on, and that gives you the opportunity to, particularly if you know who the other people or person is, to begin to deconstruct it. But sometimes you don't even have that.
yeah. The one thing you said there that really, and I've experienced it with my kids, particularly my daughter when she was younger. Just what you said, the confusion. We were friends, and now she's saying mean things about me to others, and she's just being mean to me. Like the whole flip around, I feel can be even worse than just a random bully passing you in the hallway saying something to you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, particularly if what you considered a friend is no longer a friend.
Yeah.
And when you really think about bullying, and I've thought a lot about, what causes it, is I've looked up and done some research, and it's a lot of the research is about Western culture and not so much Eastern, but it's not just the United States. And I think it's partly a human characteristic to try to be superior to other people.
Mhm.
And that's what, you want to control people, you want to intimidate people, you want to damage their reputations and that kind of thing. You want to establish some superiority. But if you dig deeper, why some people are bullies and other people are not. I was looking at some data that 37% of kids say that they're bullied. Well, that's, over a third of the
Oh.
population. But what makes somebody have to bully? And those are the things that make it so complicated. So, as I said last time, it may be personal trauma. Hurt people hurt people. Maybe they are being bullied by other people, and that's their only method to
And
deal with.
I agree with you 1,000,000,000%. And in my in my journey, those words, hurt people, so true. So true.
Yeah.
But when you look at it as a child bullying another child, call it 8-year-olds, 9. That child got hurt, even at younger age, and that uh, gave them the reason to bully another child. That's concerning. Concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. So they may be victims themselves. Maybe it's
Yeah.
from other kids. Maybe it's a sibling. Maybe even it's the parents,
Parents. Yeah. Hmm.
And they have learned, they can learn bullying from adults. And I mentioned it last week, that, or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, that, what kids observe, we often think that kids are um, impervious or or non-aware of what they see in, the public media and what adults do. But on the other hand, that's not true. They're very aware. So I talked about how politicians, and it's not just Republicans, actually, pardon me, but I was thinking of back in 2016 or 2016 when Hillary Clinton called peak Trump supporters, uh, what was the word? I wrote it down. Excuse me. Deplorables. And then the other day when Pete Hesgeth was being interviewed at a news at a in, uh, in the White House, and he called a journalist an awful woman, or a worst woman. So these kind of things, whoever's doing it, it does translate down to kids. It gives kids permission. So they really do learn bullying from adults. Um, Another reason is they may have limited social skills. They don't know how to cope with the meanness, or they may have a disagreement or conflict with another kid, but they don't know how to resolve the conflict.
Mm.
And, that I've seen that, possibly result of COVID, where kids didn't have the opportunity to learn social skills early. Um, and the one that worries me the most is when people don't lack empathy.
Mm.
When they do lack empathy, I'm sorry. When they have no sense of what they say or do might affect somebody else.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's more and more of that people only care about themselves. They're narcissistic, egotistical, and they don't really think about. I mean, we've all been in that position where we react very spontaneously to something, particularly if we get an email and we knock off a response to it. And,
Mm.
it's really important that we read it again, wait 30 seconds, ask ourselves, how would I feel if I received that email? Anger is, really up there, but underneath it, there's a lot of these other feelings like insecurity and hurt and, an inability to have positive ways to resolve disagreements. I think it's very
Mhm.
hard these days. if you really disagree with somebody politically or, have a very different opinion, people can't talk about it anymore. Um, I won't say
Mm.
that's true for everybody, but the general response is something very, very negative about the person, rather than trying to understand why the person has those opinions and thinks that way. And I think time is another issue, as I'm thinking about it. It takes time. I've mentioned, how it took me, 45 minutes, an hour, even more to help kids deconstruct their conflicts and talk about it. And adults are in the same way. People these days don't want to talk to anybody who has a very different political opinion. And rather than, sitting down and trying to understand, but it means taking time to do it. Um, so.
One thing I never saw it this way, but bullying is everywhere. To your
Yeah,
point, you have a politician calling out another politician. I don't do politics, but I'm just saying that's bullying.
yeah,
Even when somebody sends a text to somebody else and it's, we'll call it mean spirited,
hmm,
that's bullying. And I try to adhere to I call it the three filter. Before you send a text and email, sometimes we get a little heated, we get a little triggered. Your point, yeah, walk away from it before you hit send. But is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? If it doesn't fit all three of those, then you shouldn't send it.
right. Yeah,
Just got to take that moment because what's the impact going to be? We feel good about typing it, and I'm going to send this, and do you really need to? And you're just perpetuating that negativity.
right. And it's so complicated for parents because they really have to watch what they say about other people. They really have to very strongly verbalize how important it is not to put other people down for, a multitude of reasons. And, kids, they will listen to their parents. And, parents are role models,
Mm.
and they also have to really explicitly talk about the values, about how important it is to care for other people. Everybody's not going to be a genius. Everybody's not going to be the best athlete or the best musician or the best anything in the world. But what we do have control over is how we treat other people. And that to me is so important. I mean, when I think of I was a kid and I was teased because I was short, I don't remember bullying anybody else. Somehow or other, my parents set a role model of kindness
Mm.
that lasted. And yeah, there were times when I felt not very good about myself. I mean, I don't know if I ever mentioned, when I was 10 years old, I said I had an inferiority superiority complex because I wasn't much of an athlete and I wasn't physically very able, but I was a good student. So, at that age, I was able to kind of analyze myself a little bit. So
Wow. Well, that's why you're that's why you are professional that you're in doing what you're doing now. You had
yeah,
that foresight. And by the way, I'm with you there on the athletic side. I don't have an interest in sports. I didn't then, and I was the fat kid that got bullied on the playground. And I have
yeah,
vivid memories, kind of sad, of me walking the playground. And I would walk around with my hands behind my head, just like, I'm just walking, just like almost embarrassed, waiting
yeah,
for the 45 minutes, the 40 minutes to, go before we can go back in,
right.
because you feel like a loser.
Yeah,
Like
yep,
nobody wants to play with me. How old am I? I'm in fifth grade. I'm in fourth grade.
yep, yep.
Hmm.
I know what that.
I got quick, another email. By the way, if you ever want to reach out, question for Alan, a comment, it's very easy. Instant feedback, Steve at gmail.com. Jody checks in from New Canaan, Connecticut. She says, who do you feel gets bullied more often, boys or girls?
That's a very good question. My sense is, my gut feeling, though I don't have the statistics for it, is that it's probably girls on social media now
Mm,
more. more than boys. Boys will still kind of just say whatever they need to say. Not that, when they're playing games or video games, and sometimes, you're a loser and that kind of thing.
Right.
It's hard to know exactly, but I think the more visible bullying is from boys to boys because, they tend to be more impulsive anyway. But I think with social media, it's girls. Um, I could be wrong. I don't know if any research has been done to document the amount, but both genders and particularly now, um, people who are non-binary, people are made fun of because of their sexual orientation or their gender identity. So
Mm,
that could be anybody. People are made fun of online and in person for their social status, their abilities, and so on. But I to my mind, it almost doesn't matter. I mean, it's a good question,
yeah,
but as long as it continues to happen to people, and we don't have, I mean, there are ways to deal with it, and I did want to, sort of talk about what do you do if you are being bullied, you know?
sure.
Uh, I mean, kids need to realize from their parents and their teachers that it's unacceptable. One, don't bully back. I mean, whether it's on social media or in person, try not to give that because all it does is accelerate. I mean, it's like war. Somebody does something, you do it back, and what does it do? It escalates. It's so important to tell a trusted adult. If it's social media, document it, take a screenshot,
Mm,
report it to some of the platforms like TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, because they do have rules about this sort of thing. Um, if you can, develop both physical strength to be able to stand up. Don't just weep and bend over and be able to say, when you say that to me, that really hurts my feelings. Please don't do that anymore. Um, these are all a number of different possibilities that people can do. Some people aren't going to be able to do some. Um, but parents need to talk to their kids about how to react or even just walk away, standing up to the bully. And standing up for others is really important. You may have heard the term an upstander.
hmm
So if there's if you have a safety friend, a good friend that you can trust who will say, "Hey, come on, that's not nice to say to so and so. Please don't do that." There's much more strength when there's two or three kids that are saying, we don't do
Sure.
that. So it's good to learn how to be an upstander and to have one. And for the mental health piece of it, it's really important to try to build the kids' self-esteem, reassure them that this isn't about you. The other person's probably being bullied and hurt. And as I said earlier, if they can't overcome that, if they can't develop a strong enough self-esteem to say, oh, come on, I don't believe that, then they need therapy. But it's also important to try to minimize contact with the bully, get off the social media for a while, block the bully on social media. Um, those are all, things that you can do. And then I think it's wonderful for parents to help kids develop empathy. Instead of the bullying thing, learn how to give compliments. Um, and parents need to do that with kids. I mean, I would say probably 10 times as many comments they get from adults, parents and teachers, are negative. We look at it as constructive criticism, but
You
How
mean a
much
parent? You mean a teacher to a child or a student?
a teacher to a child? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I
And
mean,
the memories are flooding back right now.
yeah. I mean, what do teachers usually do? Teachers usually correct the kids, if they do something wrong, but how often do they um, compliment the kids? That's really a good start of your essay, or that was a very interesting comment you made. I'm
Mm,
not saying that all teachers don't compliment, but the tendency is to correct because
yeah.
kids, that's growing up, you make mistakes. So you have to balance it. And I remember somebody said once that it takes 10 compliments to kind of undo or balance one criticism. So
Mm.
even giving a bully a nice comment can possibly, it's very hard to do
Diffuse
that,
them. Yeah. Potentially
but it's
diffuse them.
but at least it's confusing. Yeah, yeah,
Wow. I have so many memories that are coming back based on everything you're saying. Like, I think that's one of your superpowers. Like, you inspire, and I can hear in my mind and see the visuals of teachers that were encouraging. And unfortunately, I remember the ones that weren't.
yeah.
But in some regards, the negative comments, or maybe not so positive comments, might have fueled me and pushed me forward. I don't know. Jury's out on that one.
Yeah.
So glad we
Well,
talked about it today.
sometimes teachers don't even know. Like one thing that happened to me, I'll never forget. We were playing kickball. I think I was in sixth grade, and I couldn't kick it very far. And the teacher asked me if I wanted somebody to substitute for my turn to kick the ball. And I still remember, yes, like my mouth was like this. I was trying to not cry.
Oof.
You know, it was, and I ended up kicking the ball, even if the whole, outfield came a little bit closer to me. But, and did I blame her for that? Not particularly. I think she was trying to actually save me embarrassment. So,
Mm.
teachers and parents, think they may make comments sometimes, but it's all about communication and how will that thinking about how will this person really take my comment? And, life is so impulsive these days. People just say the first thing that comes out of their mouth or out of their head, and they don't really think about the effect. And that's what parents can really do a good job teaching kids empathy and thoughtfulness.
So many great thoughts today about this and such an important topic because it's not just about our kids. It's about
Us.
adults because look at us. We're bringing back memories from the playground and how it impacted us. And who knows, later in life, things might have been a little bit different had things gone differently back
Right.
then.
True.
Alan, thank you so much for today. Truly appreciate it. If anybody's got any kind of insight or questions about this and any topic related to psychology and our kids, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. As
Great.
always, I appreciate it. Looking forward next time we get together.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Steve. Have a good week.
You too. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.